taken me. I'm the oldest person in the organization. So they're keen to learn, but we cannot ignore the fact that they have done something great which we could not do. Let me tell you that. Look at the example of the owner of the managing director of Flipkart. Is $20 billion company, employing more than 20,000 people, giving employment to 20,000 people in India is not a joke. Please, let's have respect for those people. But they need to learn. So leadership comes from experience, from learning. And these guys, let me tell you that they are the people who want to learn. They are not perfect. But these people have done something amazing. They have given something amazing to the Indian economy, which cannot be negated.
Yeah. So I'll probably address a couple of things. One was with respect to young leaders and how, gaming can help them. I think that was one question that you had asked. So I don't have to resort to any other example here but my direct experience. We are in the business of creating leaders through games. So I've seen many examples of young leaders in their 20s acting as VPs of big startups, right? They've not seen the economic cycles. They've not seen how do I manage a large team. These are things that they are learning on the job, and it's a risky proposition. And companies do not want to risk that by having a young leader manage such an important portfolio. So what we do with them is we create a safe learning environment where we put them through a gamified experience, show them what can actually go wrong. And can I see you respond to these events? How do you respond? And through the feedback that comes through the game, the behavioral correction happens. Yeah. So that process of game where you take an action, you see the impact, and the feedback that you get from the game helps you undergo that behavioral correction. The other point that you made was a great one with respect to individuals versus company versus the environment, right? Gamification is not just for individuals. It is for organizational culture. It is for organizational behavior. And there are a lot of initiatives that are happening for environmental changes as well. So in fact, a couple of things that I can recall, I don't know the details specifically, but you may want to look it up. There was a research that was done for HIV/AIDS. Researchers were studying this for a long time. They were not able to crack the problem and come up with a solution. They opened it up. They open sourced the problem, and they said, come solve this problem. And a bunch of gamers came in and they solved it in a couple of weeks, right? So behavioral change can happen at an individual level, organizational level changes can happen, big scientific problems can be solved through gaming as well. So these are a couple of examples that I know from my own personal experience.
We are using, sir, आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि हम अपनी कंपनी में कल्चर चेंज के लिए कर रहे हैं यूजर्स को. जितने लोग हैं हमारे, जो हमने कल्चर डिफाइन किया है, फ्रेमवर्क डिफाइन किया है, हम किस प्रकार का कल्चर चाहते हैं कंपनी में, उसको करने के लिए ऑल द पीपल आर टेकन थ्रू डिफरेंट सेशंस with use of gamification. So the reach is very high. We are doing it. No, thank you very much. Very nice question. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so usually the starting point is the competency map for the organization. What's the overall strategy of the company, the purpose, as the panelists mentioned. So gamification is not implemented just out of thin air, right? It is one of those methodologies that are used to achieve a certain purpose. So we start with the purpose, come up with a competency map, then look at what behaviors have to change, where is a gap, some assessment is conducted, and we find out where the gap is, then we address those gaps using these gamification principles.
Yeah. We have like for example, Jabong, I'm just giving you a real-time example. हमने वो framework define किया हुआ है, we call it GET, J for joy for customers, E for empower yourself, T for world-class team. And in that, we define different behaviors which people need to demonstrate and which we need to strengthen in the organization. Basis that we have designed various gamification programs in the organization. So there's a purpose. What we want to do is very clearly spelled out.
Sandeep or Tarun, you want to add?
So I'll give you another real-time example with regards to competencies. So we have a sales hierarchy in our organization. So if you are a person interacting with people, what are the traits they normally have to be successful? For example, empathy, when you're discussing a mandate with a customer. Communication skills. When you go up higher up in the hierarchy, then teamwork is important. So we decide on those competencies, we measure them, we identify the gaps. So for example, even when we are having people move up the curve with regards to organization, an individual performer need not always be a great leader, we all know, right? So we identify what is required in that particular role, and then we identify the gaps, then we put them through training and actually cover the gaps. That's another example. I think your questions are covered.
All right, so one last question, then we'll wrap it up. Great, absolutely great set of questions.
I'll just add, what is also a disclaimer is gamification is one of the cogs of the wheel, one of the tools to actually do the larger program. It is not replacing the larger program, but it is one of the tools.
Yeah, one final question, then we'll wrap it up. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Gunjan, and I work for Wipro. My question is that we all recognize the importance of gamification in building capability, both for junior folks as well as for people in senior management. My question is, how much of gamification are we actually using for senior management, especially with respect to development of leadership skills? And is there any live example where you can say that gamification was used either for developing or actually assessing leadership skills in top management, and that being used as a basis for deciding whether they're really worthy of their position, whether they can go up, or whether they really need to learn a lot more?
Sure.
Thank you.
You want to take it? This is for gamification for senior leaders.
So yes, I think if you look at gamification as a concept, like I said, we need to differentiate between gamification as a tool versus what we mean as gaming principles, right? And gaming mechanics, which is what is the broader thing about driving the behavior change. So at a, for example, when it comes to measuring leadership traits through, for example, assessment centers or development centers, it's not anything new where, where simulations have been part of various leadership assessment processes for a long time and continue to remain across levels, across a lot of organizations. At the same time, it is, if you look at the gaming principles of ensuring that how is it that in a new environment you can make a decision, right? There are a lot of situations where there are examples put in of making decisions in a box, of creating a situation where you are actually given a particular problem and people are asked to make decisions. In certain cases, like we know, for example, one of our global clients, FMCG, real life problems are being solved for this leadership development across the globe by teams, and this is part of the leadership development. So it's not just gaming, it's teams which are competing with each other across countries to do real life problems for an actual tangible goal of X amount of increase in top line over a period of 2 years. So the entire spectrum is available from complete simulation to actual real life, where leaders are being challenged and put into new situations, right? And this is for one of the top global FMCG clients of ours. So it's been there, some of the principles have been there in a long time. What has really changed over the new recent time is the fact that what technology has enabled for people to communicate and be social across geographies. Earlier you needed physical presence for people to collaborate and work together. Now, across geographies, across business units, the breaking of the silos is much easier with technology enabling it. So that's become a multiplier.
Yeah, can we, I think the organizers are already, yeah.
When we are talking about the icebreaker gaming, is there any difference thing? Previously, whenever we are doing the training program, off-plate, 1-minute game,
Yeah.
breaking our barrier,
Yeah.
beyond that, right off.
You want to take that?
That's one of the techniques for gaming, one of the techniques of, this is called anchor. Why we do icebreaker? To anchor them to a purpose, right? That's why I do that, to bring their attention to the training program. And that's, sorry?
Instead of talking about half an hour, 1 hour, in a 1-minute game, we got a lot of new.
Yeah. That's a very powerful way of doing things. Yeah, I agree.
All right, we'll we'll close the session right here. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions, and let's put a good round of give good round of applause to the panelists here for sharing great amount of information.
I would like to request Mr. Rajesh Datta, Director HR Terex, to present a memento to Mr. Rajiv Jayaraman.
Now I request Professor Pallavi S. Garg, IBA, to present a memento to Mr. Ashu Malhotra.
I would request Professor Monica Saxena, Associate Professor IBA, to present a memento to Mr. Sandeep Chatterjee.
I request Ms. Deepika Mahajan, Head HR Capital First, to present a memento to Mr. Tarun Sinha. Thank you so much. With this, we have come to the end of the third session of 7th Mega HR Conclave. I would request you all to join for tea at the dining area and come back for the final session of HR Conclave at 4 p.m. sharp. Thank you.
Just to remind
We would like to inform you about top 3 case study presentations and award ceremony at 5 p.m. We request you all to kindly stay with us. With this, we have...
Please proceed.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. There is a feedback form in your kit. Kindly fill it and submit it at the register. That includes Mr. Gaurav Markanda, Session Moderator, Mr. Abdesh Dikshit, Mr. Hemant Taneja, Mr. Vikramjeet Singh, Mr. Mayuk Das Gupta.
I invite you all to please join the dais. Is coming. Oh, no problem. Thank you.